All right. Hello, everyone. So today we have Ellie, and some of you guys will know that Ellie is actually currently our designer and our technical project manager. So Ellie, can you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right, so my name's Ellie. I am an incoming second year at UCSD studying psychology and just added a minor in educational studies. And yeah.
All right, awesome. So Ellie, obviously you mentioned that you're majoring in psychology and just recently added that educational studies minor. So I guess, why did you choose on this major minor combination?
So I originally went into college, like the college application process, specifically knowing that I wanted to major in psychology just because I'm interested in the subject. And like just all throughout high school I like we did like the basic math and like the sciences, and I wasn't into a lot of the things. And then there's like the option of the STEM classes in like computer science or engineering, and I took AP Comp Sci and didn't like it. I just couldn't envision myself sitting myself down and like doing that kind of thing for hours.
Mhm.
And the subject of psychology interested me, and I would have a lot of conversations with friends surrounding the topics and like those type of like deep philosophical conversations. And I was like, oh, maybe like this will be the path for me, and wasn't sure. A lot of people, when they first think of like majoring in psychology, they automatically think that, oh, you're going to become a therapist. But like, I know for myself personally, I am not capable of healing people. like, but through like the process, also our senior year of high school, in my English class, our teacher made us do this project where we considered a career that we were considering and like interviewed someone with that career. And so I actually interviewed a marriage and family therapist, and like through that experience I was like, yeah, for sure that is not the path for me. I'm still interested in psychology, but like probably take a different path with that. And that's what led me more towards like the research component, and like just going more towards that side, and which is what I will be pursuing for future. When in terms of educational studies and adding that minor, I decided to do that just recently. I'm involved with this project called the Alternative Breaks program at UCSD. And the specific project I'm a part of is called Alternative Breaks India, and it's like a cooperation project between Alternative Breaks and the Educational Studies Department at UCSD, and this thing called the Akansha Foundation in India that have created this new curriculum involving like different types of learning techniques for kids in India. And so like our job here through this project is to come in and reevaluate how they've used these like new learning techniques and how effective they are. And like through becoming involved in this project, I was like, I know other people who are really involved in the educational studies department, and I was like, oh, like adding a minor in this subject that I'm kind of like pretty interested in shouldn't be that bad. I've always like liked the idea of education and like thought that there should be a lot of changes to be made through like long-term things. So I decided to that just because also like in the future I do want to pursue research, and oftentimes research comes with like being a professor at a university. And so like that's also learning and education and a lot of that. Yeah, so it kind of worked out that way. We'll see how things go, but that's what made me decide. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think psychology gets a bad rap. I think a lot of people don't notice, but I was actually really interested in doing like biopsychology too when I was in high school. And I was like, everyone was saying like, oh, you're really gonna be a therapist, stuff like that. Like, I feel like it gets a bad rap. Like, psychology always gets a bad rap about, you're going into therapy. But there's a lot of things you could have done. And honestly, if I still went down the psychology route, I probably would have done the same thing as you, going into research or studying stuff like that. Especially since, even though I am like a biology major right now, very oriented around research, I feel like I still could have done that with psychology. And yeah, no, I think that was great. Obviously, thanks for talking about your experience on that. So I guess moving on to the next topic. So UC San Diego, obviously a really great school, especially in their science department. So I guess why did you choose UC San Diego to attend, for college?
So when I was choosing between colleges at the very end, I narrowed it down between University of Washington, Seattle, UCSD, and UC Santa Barbara.
Hmm.
And I went to go visit the UW Seattle campus. I liked Seattle a lot, but
Hmm.
the day I went there, I just like didn't have such a great day. Like I got my period that day and like just like things didn't feel great and it just like these worries of like being this far away from home like okay and like will I actually be able to survive by myself like this far away like you actually need to go on a plane ride to get back home
Hmm.
and like am I independent enough to be ready to take that leap yet? And then at the time I was like okay no probably not right now. And also I looked at their psychology department and just with comparing UCSD's psychology department and UW Seattle's psychology department, I realized that there were a lot more opportunities offered at UCSD in terms of like just the sheer amount of electives that are available at UCSD. There's like the other day I wrote a list of like just electives I was interested in within the psych department and there's like 50 something electives on
Oh,
there.
wow.
So it's like there's a lot I can choose from
Hmm.
that I'm interested in. But while like the other choices in universities like didn't offer that. Also, like I eventually went to go visit the UCSD campus and I really, really liked the campus. I know a lot of people complain or like a lot of people believe that the layout of the campus isn't as great because like we have different colleges. It's like
Hmm.
a college system. And so all the first years aren't all together in one spot. We have like everyone in this college all together in one spot. And
Hmm.
then like there are like going to be 7 colleges next year.
Hmm.
And so it's just like pretty spread out and like you need to be able to find friends and socialize and like be able to do all those things in order to actually have a social life. And if you don't put yourself out there, you kind of just are stuck in the dorm by yourself and it might get lonely. And that's why I think like UCSD has that reputation of being quote unquote social. You put yourself out there, like you will what you put into the world. And I also really like the location of how it's really close to the beach and just I don't know, it really fit at the time. Just like
Hmm.
the good psych program, the location, how it's 2 hours away from home, far enough to be like, oh, I have to study this weekend. I can't come back home, but also like close enough to be like, if I miss home, I can for sure come back home. And eventually I rolled out Santa Barbara just because I actually like planned to go visit, but then I liked the UCSD campus and the opportunities there so much that I was like, I don't think they can surpass this. And also the location, not just that it was by the beach, but also like there's a city to explore just in San Diego. And we have like a street full of Asian food that like if I wanted boba and to hit up some like any like Asian spot, like I have the accessibility to do so where there's downtown SD and also just like yeah, so like just the location and good program. That's what made me choose to go to SD.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you too. And I think another thing to point out, like you mentioned, like a lot of people think that oh, the UCSD is like UC socially dead. But I mean, I think for every person it's different, especially like how willing you are to take, make the most of your social life. So I think
Yeah.
definitely if you reach out, you find people to befriend, then yeah, you'll probably do it. I mean, yeah, the downside is that I know San Diego doesn't have a football team, so yeah, maybe you do miss out on like tailgates or like football games or whatnot. But for the most part, there's still other ways to be social and be active. And maybe if you're not a huge football fan, then going to San Diego is still perfectly fine for you. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So
Definitely if you want a big school environment with the football team type of thing, like don't go to SD. Like a lot of my friends we were talking about it, like a lot of us just aren't interested in football and don't like yeah, so like you find other people who are similar to you in those terms and aspects. Like if you go to a school that like doesn't have the things that you don't really care that much about, like it will work out more so.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that statement as well too. You know, if you are a big football fan, come to USC. But for the most part, like yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're especially if you're not like a huge football fan and you're perfectly okay with it, then yeah, San Diego would still be a really amazing choice, especially if you're going into the science field. I mean, the whole UC system in general, I think, is very strong in the STEM department, so there are really great options for that. So yeah, I think Ellie, now let's probably take a step back. Let's go back to our senior year of high school. Fun
All
times.
right.
So I guess yeah. So first and foremost, the college application process. I guess how would you summarize how that went for you?
Um, I think all in all, it went pretty well for what it is.
Mhm.
But that's just because personally, I was able to, like, because I was so stressed and worried about it in the very beginning that I like sat myself down and was like, okay, I need to do this. And I, like, usually for me, if I worry a lot about something, I will make sure that I do it. And then those worries go away as I solve my own problems. And then it kind of like shifts that way. So, like, I was really stressed and worried about the process. So I like focused on it a lot and like broke it down into all like the bits and pieces. Like when I first saw all the questions that we had to answer for just like the UC prompts and then like the Common App, like back in, like I looked it up in sophomore year and then I was like, I just like put it away because I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to answer these questions. And then slowly as like junior year came around, I like looked at it again and again and I was like, okay, like I have bit more of a grasp of like maybe I can answer it this way, but you're still not really sure until you just like spend a lot of time like just thinking about the questions in themselves. Because just I think we're mostly like just the essay portions that are the most daunting in like the entirety. Because like the rest that you fill out, like the rest of the information, it's pretty self-explanatory, like where you live, all that, like yeah. And like it's just like the big questions, and there's those are really hard questions that like these college apps are asking of us, and as like 17-year-olds, do we really know the answer? Okay, as 19-year-olds now, we don't really have full answers to these questions. It's just something like you should think about just in general. And I feel like starting early and just having those questions in the back of my mind, like just knowing that you have to answer it and then just like thinking and reflecting while like going through the process. Like you spend a lot of time thinking about it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what helped the most through it all. Yeah, sorry, I kind of went astray.
No, 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 it's all good. No,
Yeah.
all good. No, I definitely think. I mean, we could also like arguably say that the college application process went off astray in many different ways. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. Yeah, there's a lot of things you obviously have to manage, and I think just to touch up on one thing. So obviously you mentioned how you kind of looked at the essays in like your sophomore year of high school, so which is relatively like pretty early compared to some students who don't they'll see it for the first time in senior year of like wow I'm screwed. So I think for you obviously like you clearly researched this early on or like you knew about this pretty well. So for you, what was your main way of getting like information about this? Like how did you research the college application process? Was it through like school resources, the internet, family and friends, upperclassmen? I guess for you, like what was your best way of kind of tackling this part of the process?
Yeah, so I mostly like it was the internet and a lot of family and friends and like just friends I knew who were older and like could help out, and also a lot of close friends who knew me well. And because like some of the apps will ask like, oh, how do you would you best describe yourself?
Mhm.
Sometimes like your friends see you better than you see yourself because you're yourself, and like it's hard to see a mirror like all the time and like to actually be able to describe yourself. So like my main resources are just family and friends, or like my family didn't really help that much, but it was just like older upperclassmen, like School definitely provided a lot of resources. I actually don't remember how much I really benefited from the school's resources just because we went to such a big school that like
Yeah,
graduating classes, what, like 800, 900 kids? Like,
a lot. Like
yeah,
you barely knew half of them.
yeah, like you knew their names, but yeah, so mainly just like people who were close to me and people who like I knew who'd gone through the process before, and like so everything's really strange and daunting at first, like hard to comprehend by yourself. Definitely would recommend reaching out as much as you can to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The process is really daunting, especially like, if you don't have any like older siblings. Like I know I'm the oldest in my family, and
Mm-hmm.
even though both my parents went to college in the US, times are so different
Mm-hmm.
from when they went to versus when I'm applying. So obviously I couldn't really ask them for much because it's things have changed. So I think
Yeah.
upperclassmen, I don't think people realize how much they should value that advice because they're literally
Yeah.
going through the process or already finished the process. They're probably the best
Mm-hmm.
people to ask because they are the most familiar with the most recent version, I guess, of the application process.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely, I think those are the people you want to ask. And I think another thing to touch up on this application process is, you kind of mentioned earlier the essays. Like, it is so confusing in terms of like, figuring out what to write. It is
Mm-hmm.
not the usual conventional essays we write in English class. English classes we're analyzing books, like maybe it'd be Gatsby, Of Mice and Men. We're just analyzing like literary pieces that have already been presented to us. We rarely
Yeah.
get the chance to kind of self-express ourselves, especially in a school system that's so focused on academics and like just pressing on understanding concepts rather than representing yourself. Um, it is very hard and difficult to actually write those type of essays, especially since it almost seems like you're trying to make yourself like super, like almost like cocky in a sense because like you're just like putting everything out about yourself. So for you, what
Mm-hmm.
would you say is like your advice or like how did you tackle those essays? Because I would say that that is probably one of the most difficult parts of this entire process.
How I tackled the essays. It just like a lot of thinking about it. I remember going back to Taiwan on like for winter break or like oh no for summer break because I started over the summer and like was thinking about the questions then and like on the flight on the way to Taiwan I was thinking about like one of the questions like just like sat there looked out the window and just like thought like how am I gonna answer this
Mhm.
thing way back and it's just like I spent a lot of time thinking and I think like I believe that like during this time especially like in quarantine like a lot of people are saying oh go for walks and like if you're in like a rising senior right now and going to apply I recommend that go for walks and just think about a question listen to music I don't know, just like put yourself there in the mindset that you're just thinking about. It might worry you a lot, but you'll only be able to dig deep within yourself to create essays that truly represent who you are by doing that like deep work of like figuring out what really truly what you can say about your own story that you can put down in like a 300-word piece that will answer this question and be an actual representation of who you are as a person and like will the person reading the essay be able to like recognize like you as the person like I think that's really important because if you don't do the deep work and do in doing so then it's like whatever you're submitting out there isn't truly a version of who you are and they're not getting the full picture of you and not really considering you're not letting these admissions officers to truly understand who you are and like what you are holistically not just beyond your grades and whatever you're submitting out there yeah
Yeah, no, I
just
think
doing
that's
deep work yeah
yeah, I definitely think that having that time to like self-reflect is just kind of like like you said, really have that deep work and thinking because I don't think we realize how much of those essays really require us to really reflect on our past or understand who we are as a person. Like we don't see those things like an obvious first thought. And I think sitting at your desk sometimes or just working and trying to think like on the spot is so hard to do because you're already stressed out with everything going on. You're not gonna be able to be in the right mindset. So yeah, like I had friends tell me that they got all their college ideas from like when they were taking a shower. Like they would just stand there in the
Yeah.
water, and they'll start actually thinking about it. And it makes sense because when you think about it, you're not really doing much if you're just standing there. You're just kind of thinking, or at least in your case, it was for you. It was like it was walking. I think for me, it was like at midnight, I'll just be laying down in bed, and all of a sudden I'll have a great idea. So I just have to jot it down on a notepad to make sure I remember it the next day. Like that's how I kind of thought of my answers. Like usually you won't figure out the best answer just sitting by your desk and working. There's
Mm-hmm.
like so many ways you have to actually reflect on it. And yeah, I'm really glad that you kind of mentioned this aspect of like, this is a very unique way of approaching it, but I think it is kind of necessary to really understand who you are as a person. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
like
mhm,
have the questions there at the back of your mind because some like out of the blue, like some answer will come up as
it'll
long as
pop
like
up. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. And I think just to wrap up the college application process, if you could have changed anything, or just, if you could redo the entire process, like, would you have changed anything? And if so, like, why or why not?
Um, like, do you mean about how I went about the process or just
I mean, yeah, I mean, how you went about the process, or like just, I guess, the entire system in general, completely up to you.
mm, I think I wouldn't change anything about the process in itself and like the application. I wish I could change like how within the 12 years that we get our education in like schools that like there's more implementation of these types of writings of self-reflection because it was the first time we really like had to write about ourselves and that made it really hard. And so
Hmm.
if we'd done something similar before, then it would have been a lot easier that on ourselves to like open up that side of us and open up those like deep questions because like beyond that in school like no one asked us those questions. And yeah,
Hmm.
I think so
Yeah,
that's what I would change.
yeah, I definitely agree with you on that too. Especially since I think the only time I've really written about myself is like in elementary school or like some introductory paragraph where I was just like, "Hi, my name is Christian. I'm blank
Yeah.
years old." Like I think that's as much as I've done for like a self-reflection or like a description about myself. I never actually put any
Mm-hmm.
deeper thoughts because once I got into high school, it was like, "Bam, here's a book, read it, give me an essay," or here's a history paper, write that for me. Like I never got a chance to really, other than putting my name down, like I mentioned, or like,
Yeah.
oh, my favorite color is like purple or whatnot. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
never any time to actually have that, like a deeper self-reflection, especially when you get older. I think it's more necessary because, you go from that elementary school stuff where you just do very basic sentences, like very, very basic sentences. And then
Mm-hmm.
now when you get into high school, you actually need to like go, like all of a sudden you have to be like the next, like Ralph, like Waldo Emerson or something like that, like, or
Yeah.
like transcendentalism or something like that. So, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And yeah, I think that was a great, reflection on obviously the college application process. So I guess moving on to going back to a little bit of college, I think one of the biggest things that is associated with college, other than the academics of it, is extracurricular activities. So I guess if you want to like
Mhm.
touch up on some extracurriculars you're participating in, and maybe like elaborate on one or two of them.
Okay, so uh uh so once I got into college, I like basically most of my friends now are from like my suite mate group
Mhm.
and like my friends from TASA and TASA is stands for Taiwanese American Student Association and so like it's just like a cultural organization that like hosts a lot of like social events and so like I joined it early on like in the fall but I only went to events in the beginning that I was interested in so Korean barbecue um bonfire night I wanted to go to the beach it was a free ride um just like little things in the beginning and then slowly I like they have like a big little system so then I got picked
Mhm.
up and got close to my family and then I was like okay like I want to come out to events more because I want to see like my big or like my twin and like that
Mhm.
kind of thing and so I became more involved in winter quarter and like actually now like in the spring they had board applications and I'm going to be historian for next year
Awesome.
so that's kind of how that progressed. In the beginning, I like became really close friends really fast with my suite mate group. And in the beginning, I was like, I don't really need more people, do I? But then slowly, like, I realized like I needed more diversity in the types of relationships I was having, and like just more different, like kind of like something similar to home in that like I was around more Asian people just like for the sake of comfort and like security. I don't know, like just like the cultural aspect sometimes it helped a lot just being around people who would understand like, that kind of thing. I also joined psychology club
Mhm.
and actually wasn't too involved all throughout the year, but in the beginning, like in the fall, I tried to like put myself out there more. Since I am a psych major, I was like, oh, like let me try to get to know more psych majors and hopefully like I don't know, meet more people and see what's out there. Actually, through that, I was able to I became friends with two people from a volunteer event, and their friends was doing her senior honors thesis on like a whole research thing within the lab,
Mhm.
and she was looking for research assistants, and I just like she was like asking around, and then I was like, oh, I'm down, like you're doing a study on eye contact, that sounds cool, like yeah. And then so I got involved with that, and then I became a part of this lab just through like being involved in psychology club in itself, just like yeah. So like these are the main things going on for me. And in winter quarter, um, with the friends I made in TASA, like a lot of the guys in there will play basketball, and we have the group chat called TASA Presents Basketball. And so like a group of us will just go to the gym at night and like just play for like 3 hours or
Mhm.
so. And eventually in winter quarter, we set up our own intramural team and did it
Oh,
like
nice.
co-ed. So it was like both girls and guys from the team, and just like that was a good time.
Yeah, no, and again, I like how, the extracurriculars you were describing are, they were pretty diverse. Like obviously you had like TASA, which is a cultural club. You had like, mentioned
Mhm.
basketball, more of a like and kind of like athletic, just for exercise kind of thing. And then you also mentioned psychology club, or even though maybe you weren't so engaged in it, there were things you were probably able to get out of it and whatnot. And I
Yeah.
think it's nice to see that, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I gotta join a club that's like related to my academics or related to what I'm gonna do in the future. Um, Especially for those kids who are probably like, pre-med, pre-law, or whatnot.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's a big stigma around it. But I think finding a balance, just do things you enjoy doing. Obviously, yes, you might want to have some things that are related to your major or your future
Yeah.
goals, but like take the time to find some other fun things to do. Like, play basketball
Mhm.
every now and then, go to the gym, go running. Maybe
Yeah.
I know I have a friend who joined like the rock climbing club. Some people do like rowing. Like, there's a lot of things you can do in college. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't just limit yourself to things that you're used to doing. Like, just don't do the same volunteer academic teams. Do something fun. Heck, you want to join a Super Smash Bros. Club? Join a Super Smash Bros. Club. We have that at USC, so I mean, like, why not? So yeah, I really appreciate how you mentioned, like, especially how diverse your options are. And I think obviously
Mhm.
just to kind of wrap up this video, if you could give advice to high school students, whether it be about college application process, college lifestyle, or just like life advice in general, what would you tell them?
Mm, I think I'd give two main advices. First thing is like things will work out in the end. I think like as long as you give whatever you can in the moment, like I'm sure you'll be able to look back and go like, okay, yeah, like I did all I could, and there's a lot that you're not in control of. Like whatever college accepts you, like you're not going to be in control of that. You're only in control of whatever you put down in the app. So that's only like however much you decide to apply yourself within that. And then like the results, like no one can actually like pinpoint how colleges decide and like whether a student, like no matter how great or smart you think like this other person is, like sometimes someone just doesn't get in, and like no one can really explain it, and like sometimes that person is you, and like there's always the option of transferring. I know so many great people who are like doing amazing, and like even despite like 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 the mentality of like thinking that transferring, like going to a community college isn't the greatest option, but like I know so many people who are taking that route and they're doing amazing.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
never rule that out. Like if you're not happy with your choices, like there is always another path.
Mhm.
The second piece of advice I give is like balance. Balance is so important. Like
Mhm.
you talked earlier about how like the activities I was a part of, they're like kind of diverse and like just different all in all. And I think that mainly contributed because of like I was trying to like have like a balance of like the fun things to do while having like the serious side. Like I had my classes, got involved in research and like all that, but still had like fun with friends and then we're like exercising, like that kind of thing going on. And I think that's really important like during the application process in itself too,
Mhm.
because you have your schoolwork and you have like so much to dig deep into with like the college application process
Mhm.
questions and like those essays. Like it gets really heavy at times. You definitely need
Mhm.
time to just like unwind and chill, because if you don't take those moments to do that, you won't be able to go back to these questions to think about in like a good mind, because
Mhm.
it's a lot. You get really stressed from it and everything, and like mental health is like a big thing to pay attention to. And I feel like if you're more aware and conscious of how to balance and what works best for you individually, because everyone's limits are different and everyone's like abilities to go places are absolutely different, like
Mhm.
then you're more able to like maintain like a better lifestyle, and you'll be able to look at it with like a yeah, like things went
Mhm.
well kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that was really great advice, especially obviously talking about what you just said with balance. It is so important. Like you said, mental health is a huge factor. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if people realize it, but like the number of kids who go through like depression or like certain mental health issues, it's pretty huge. And it's not something that you'd be like, oh, those people aren't doing something right. No, realistically, times are gonna get hard. Like you are not gonna know what's gonna happen. And I think it really relates back to your also your first advice where things will happen for a reason. You can get into college, you might have to go to community college. You don't know who's going to accept you. You have to expect the
Mm-hmm.
unexpected. I don't think, for example, if we had started freshman year, I don't think anyone could have told me that a virus is going to hit it and bam, I would have been cut short. Like only have gone through 75% of my
uh,
freshman, yeah, right? Like you have to expect the unexpected. Things are going to happen. Things are going to be there and curveball you. But yeah, at the end of the day, as long as you're willing to pick yourself up, keep pushing, maintain that balance, I think it is so important. And yeah, obviously,
yeah,
Ali, we want to thank you so much for obviously giving your talk on this. And
of
especially,
course.
obviously being a part of our team. Like I mentioned, Ellie is our designer and our technical project manager. So she's been kind of working on aesthetics of our websites, our brand logo, and the graphics for our team. So obviously, we want to thank her for all of that work. And obviously, we hope that everyone watching this video, you got a lot of information and value from it. And yeah, thank you so much.